Hello everyone, it's Rhinos7. Today we are playing Rhinos, and this time we are playing Rhinos with a new Nissa. Of course, everybody already knows this card. This says it's 3 mana 3/3 that says when you play a land, add 1 mana of any color, then if it's a second time, this ability resolves this turn, search your library for elf or elemental card. So let's see what elf and elemental cards we play here. So of course there is 4 Fury, the standard in every Rhinos list. There is also 3 Bloodbraid Elf and 2 Omnat Locus of the Field, and of course Nissa can find itself because it's Elf too. So we have a Bloodbraid Elf into this list for additional Nissa targets, as of course we can't keep Furies in every matchup. Sometimes you have to board it out, so you have to have other elemental and elf targets for you to find with Nissa. So for that purpose we have 3 Bloodbraid Elves, 2 Omnats, 4 Furies. On the sideboard we have 3 Endurance and 2 Orvars, which is Changeling, so it also fits the Nissa plan. Okay, so this is enough number of elementals and elves to find with Nissa. So in every matchup possible in Modern, we will always have enough targets according to our sideboard plan. Okay, so there is 3 Nissa in the main, not 4, because I think there is not enough room for a fourth one, and in this deck, Nissa is kind of a backup plan. Still, of course, this is a Rhinos deck, so your plan is to go turn 3 Shardless Agent or Violent Outburst if possible. If not possible, you will take a backup plan. Also, this Nissa works very well with Curve in this deck because on turn 4 you can go Nissa fetch and still get 3 mana and cast your Cascade spell, or find a tap land, cast the Scion of Draco, or find untap land, cast the Leyland Binding plus Scion of Draco, while finding a Fury or Omnat or Bloodbraid Elf or another Nissa. So I think in my experience, so I only played 2 leagues with it, but it was really cool with mana curve. Also, after post board, when you have endurance, Ashioks, stuff like that, also works well with them. Okay, so let's first go to the mana base. So Nissa requires you to either play Renin 6 or a huge amount of fetches in your deck, because you always want to draw fetch once you have Nissa on the field or in hand. So for that reason, I'm playing 14 fetches in this list, and I think this is required in this type of deck that is not playing Renin 6. And we are playing a lot of white and green fetches. Try to make this a perfect balance between finding our 2 basics, but also both of our triumphs and most of the fetches. So Vincent Heat is very important land in this deck. If you check out the lands, it finds all of them. So it doesn't miss a single land. It finds Pool, Fountain, Tomb, Foundry, Garden, Grounds, Garden, Forest, Plains, and both triumphs. So it's a perfect fetch for this deck. It's finding you all 10 lands. This is really good, and I just can't say how important is this. And this is the reason why. So when building a mana base like this, first you want to see the fetches you want to play, and then you organize your shocks and triumphs to have enough of each color you need. Okay, so for the red sources, I decided for Foundry, Garden, and the Raugreen Triumph. So it will be enough in all the games. You won't need much, but you have to be careful of thinking that your Flooded Strand doesn't fetch the Stomping Ground. So you have to go for the Raugreen Triumph, and just be careful how you fetch, because it can really trick you into not being able to cast a double red spell or the Fury. It is not a problem. You just have to fetch better and be careful which fetch and when you use it. And it mana base works very well. And as I said, Vincent Heat is our best fetch in this deck. And other fetchers are great too, like Misty, Wooded Foothills, Strand hit most of the targets. Like Strand only misses 1 basic and Stomping Ground and Overgrown Tomb, so it is the worst fetch. But we kind of needed to have enough of white count fetches. And these green fetches are great too. They hit like most of the targets anyway, and just missing two of them. So that is pretty good count when you really want like when your fetch is missing just 2 out of the 10 lands. That is really good. Okay, so and Vincent Heat hitting every one of the lands is uh, really, really good. Okay, so on the sideboard, there is no room for Force of Negation in the main because we are playing Bloodbraid Elves, so you have to be careful to always take out your elves when you are bringing in Force of Negations. Orvar is very common, Creativity is a very common matchup these days, and this is still a mid-range deck. It is a tempo deck, but it is a lot of times a mid-range deck, so you really want to have um, good creativity hate, especially because you're not playing Force of Negation in the main. So Ashiok is there especially for the Titan matchup, but it can help in a 4-color Omnat matchup too, like especially these lists playing Eldrami Skulls, playing Nissa, which is also dependent on the fetches, playing Omnat, playing Vrennen 6. So the Ashiok can get them very good, but Titan is primarily reason why I have it on my sideboard. Of course, Force of Figure is there for the Titan too, but for Hammer Time, Scales, and all these artifact decks, Endurance as the best graveyard hit in the Crashing Footfalls deck because it can also sometimes shuffle your own graveyard, so you can cascade into more Rhinos in grindy matchups, stuff like that. So that is it. So 3 Nissas here with a huge number of fetches, 14 fetches, to be able to consistently use it and get our targets uh, from our deck. And also there is 2 Omnat. Omnat is there because of partially because of the blue card count. We need more blue card cards to be able to use Force of Negation. Most of the time when I use the Force of Negation, 6 blue cards come in. It's either D6 against creativity, or it's like D6 against I don't know, like most of other decks like 4-color Omelette, stuff like that. So you mostly get 16 numbers, but 16 blue cards. But if you have 14, that's decent too. 12 is a bit low. 12 is definitely a bit low, but sometimes that too can be doable. Okay, so other rest of the deck is usual. Some bindings, Sino Dracos. This thing is typical for 4-color Rhinos lists. Some people don't play Scion, but yes, Scion has been spectacular for me. And often you just win games with the Sino Draco. I think this is the Murktide of Rhinos, and I prefer it to the Temur list playing the actual Murktide. Yeah, but Scion works very well for me. I think the best thing about it is you can play it on turn 2, and then you can just win games using Scion, nothing else, protecting it with clearing the way with the removal, tapping lands, tapping creatures, using Force of Negations from the side to protect it. And if you resolve another creature, or sometimes just another Scion, whatever, often that is enough for the win. Okay, so let's go to the gameplay and see how the league went. Okay, so in the match 1, playing second, keeping decent hand when I have turn 2 Sino Draco, turn 3 Shardless Agent, which is pretty good. We're hoping to see a Nissa in action, of course. So I have a lot of shocks in hand. That's why I go for the Misty on turn 1 to get my Triumph, of course, so I can play Scion on 2. My opponent plays the Stoneforge on their turn 2, reveals the reality chip. I'm hoping to get a red card here for the Fury pitch, but I didn't find it. I top decked 2 lands, which was pretty bad. I really didn't need more lands. Opponent got the Sigarda's aid and equipped the reality chip on the Esper Sentinel, played the Ornithopter, which was pretty good turn for them. I didn't have much, so they don't play removal, so I just play my Nissa because I really needed to play this Fury to actually be able to kill this equipped Esper Sentinel. So finally, I play Fury, attack with Nissa and Scion, put my opponent on 11, and still I am able to hold 1 mana. For the Leyline Binding, I go for the Ornithopter in I go for the chip in response to their configurability, and they concede the match at this point. Okay, so that was it. Let's see the game 2. Okay, so the Nissa in this game enabled me to like play Fury turn earlier, which was really relevant. If I wasn't able to do this, I would be in a really bad position. Okay, my opponent played first next game, and they start with the Urza Saga Sentinel. That's why I go for the Breeding Pool immediately, pay 1 mana tax for the Force of Figure, and try to force Sentinel plus Urza Saga, but this Surge of Salvation is so good in this Hammer Time decks. It protects both of their threats for just 1 mana. It's just so good here. Okay, so opponent goes for double Ornithopter and just plans to go for a Saga Construct. I was able to just hold the Outburst. It is a blue-white hammer, so I wait for them to make a construct, then create a 2/4/4s. I have a Nissa plus a fetch for the next turn, which can be pretty relevant. They can't kill a Nissa, so I think Nissa can be pretty good in this matchup. Opponent just creates another construct token, so at the moment the board is equal. They have 2/4/4s, I have 2/4/4s, and I find another fetch which will enable my Nissa to really shine. So I just fetch here, find the black source to get a full domain, and put Fury in my hand, stay back with the Rhinos in case they top deck stuff, so I'm able to have a good blockers. Opponent finds another Urza Saga, goes for the equip on the construct token, and passes the turn. Okay, find the Leyline Binding from the top. I also had Wimstead Heat. This meant that I find another Fury and leave 1 mana for Binding, which is just great. But opponent saves their construct with Blacksmith skill. This means that I can't really attack this turn. I don't have good attacks. So I just save 1 mana for the Leyline Binding with another Fury in my hand because Nissa found both of them. It really it changed the entire game. And opponent had the Urza Saga, but at least they didn't have any uh, any cards in hand at this point. So they go for the block with one of the constructs. I play another Fury to finish them. And the opponent was able to get their 2 constructs back. One was equipped. One was equipped, and I find a fetch, which means I get another ability from Nissa. I find a second Nissa, which wasn't like really important at this exact moment, but Nissa already found me 2 Furies and now a third creature, and the opponent was overwhelmed, and Nissa directly won me this game. It was like the main reason why I was able to get out of this. I don't think like any other card you can play in Rhinos would put me in a position so good like Nissa. So I think this first match was already a good example how strong can Nissa be. Okay, so that is it. First game against Hammer Time. Let's go for the next one. Okay, so this was okay hand, not a great one. I have a turn 2 Scion. I have Nissa, but no Cascade spell can definitely be a problem. I was playing against a 4-color Omnat. And my top decks were not great. I had a fetch into the Crashing Footfalls, and opponent played the Teferi to bounce my Scion. I went for the ley line plus the Scion Draco, had Nissa fetch for the next turn. My opponent plays another Teferi, so I go for the Nissa. I try to fetch, but my opponent has a Solitude. Still, they were forced to use 2 cards here to get rid of Nissa. And at least I got 2 mana to play the Scion. And I had the Furies for the next turn, but my top decks just weren't. They were like really bad. 2 footfalls from the top of the deck plus lands. Well, lands were decent because I was able to play my Fury, but yeah, footfalls were really bad top decks at this point. I was forced to kill the Teferi and 2 damage on Vren 6. Opponent got the Elish and played there. This was third Teferi, so I had to concede at this point. So let's go watch the next game. Okay, so let's see the sideboard here. I just removed some Bloodborne Elves and 1 Nissa and 2 Bindings. So 2 Bindings are not great against 4-color decks. They have Teferi, they have their Binding. So Bloodborne Elves has to go out when Force goes in. I said that already. And since I removed some of the targets for Nissa, I also trimmed 1 Nissa, so playing 2 Nissa at this point. I went for the land tap, but I was struggling to find a third land. I had 1 Rhinos on suspend and didn't get a land, which was like I got it on turn 4. I play like 24 lands, so it's not very usual to get mana screwed. When playing this deck, you definitely just have to get used to the. You really have to get used to the mana base. It's different from the mana base you played in your other Rhinos decks. So it is good. It works well. You just really have to get used to it. Okay, so I had multiple options here. Was able to go Binding or the Shardless, but I think this was perfect opportunity to play Shardless before they play their Teferi or whatever. Attack here with Rhino for 4, put opponent on 12 life with 5 Rhinos on the field. I think even with 2 Reefs, I think this is very hard for opponents to deal with. Unless they have Ephemerate, but they don't play Ephemerate, so it's pretty impossible. Okay, so that was game 2, overwhelmed the opponent by huge number of footfall of Rhinos. I had to mulligan the first hand, and I had to bottom Nissa in this hand because I needed Omnat to pitch on force. I needed Fire Ice to be able to tap their land on turn 2. But I drew the Scion in the meantime, so I decided to go for the Scion. I had force in case they try to play the Fairy. As I said, I had to bottom Nissa because I wanted to hold Omnat to be able to pitch it on force. I decided against playing Shardless Agent. Wanted to wait wanted to wait with it a bit. Sorry, my opponent had a Chalice of the Void on the field, and Nissa and Omnat really make, plus of course Fury, really make a really decent a plan B. As you can see in these matches, like they have to use the Solitude. I have my forces now to be able to counter their Teferis, whatever. So what happened this game is I accidentally, I mean I didn't accidentally, my opponent passed through the first main phase, so in the second main phase they pressed the F6 and then they played Chalice of the Void in their second main phase. It's a trick, that some of the MTGO users use to try to trick other MTGO players when playing stuff in their second main phase. Most of the times I don't fall on it, but this time I did, and I pressed. I'm a bit lazy when playing, and this time I just pressed F6 on their second main phase, so they resolved their chalice. Even I had the Force of Negation in my hand at that point, so I was looking for either land. I was looking for a land at this point. Really needed the land for the Fury, and finally I got it. To finally play this Fury from my hand to kill the Deputy, bring back my Scion. I needed a red card or a land, so it was a high chance of getting something. And now I had Fury and Sun on the field with the two Force of Negation backups. I was hoping to find uh, Iboseiju or sorry, I was hoping to find a Leyline to get rid of the Chalice. But yeah, like casting 2/2 Shardless Agent was also an option. Opponent plays the Omnat but doesn't have a land to gain life, which was great for me because I had another Fury with a backup of Force of Negation. I wasn't able to get rid of the Chalice, so Rhinos got countered here. I attack for 4 damage, leave fetch in my hand in case I draw Nissa. Opponent goes for another Omnat, but don't find a solution for my Scion and concede the game. And that was it. So that was a game against 4-color Omnat. Let's go to the next game. Okay, so opponent starts with a Chromatic Star and Copperline Gorge, which means this is definitely Gleeful Demolition deck. This was fine by me because I had double Fury in my hand, plus Leyland Binding, plus Shardless Agent. This is just a really good hand. I just need a third land. So I go for the Raugrin Triumph here. And fetch because then I can go for the second Triumph and just play the Binding for 1 mana without losing more of my life. I used one of the Furies, I kept a second in hand, so I can. Fury is definitely really good in this matchup. So I definitely want to hold on to the second one. I play my Shardless here, get my Rhinos, and opponent didn't have much else going on. They probably had Imperious Hours in hand, which they weren't able to cast or whatever, so they concede. Let's check out the game 2. Again, I have a Fury, so it's definite keep. I also have double Scion, which is great. Fury Fire Ice is a pretty good card in this matchup too. Opponent goes for the Chromatic Star and the Gleeful Demolition too, so they get 3 tokens plus a draw card. I find my domain, play the Scion, ditch the Violent Outburst from my hand because I don't really need it. I have another Scion, and I feel like Fire Ice is a more valuable card here. So I just play my second Scion and start attacking here. This is like Rhinos with Flying. Opponent plays the Void Mirror, but I don't really care about Void Mirror. I have the triple Scion here, and triple Scion is too much for most of the decks in format, and my opponent concedes. That was the game. Okay, so very quick games against Imperious or Demolition deck. Okay, so let's go to the next game. Match number 4. Okay, I suspend Rhinos on 1, have the Fire Ice on 3, hoping to find Cascade spell for turn 3 and then go for the turn 4 Nissa plus fetch. That is like perfect yeah, for this deck, perfect curve. I didn't find a Cascade spell, so I just suspend another Rhinos and play my land tapped. Opponent plays the Territorial Kavu. So I play Nissa here. I get 1 mana because I was expecting them to play the Binding. So I play my Binding. Sorry, I had the option to play my Binding, but if I had the full domain, but I didn't have it, so unfortunately my Binding costed 2 mana there. But Territorial Cow is a really good card, and I didn't want them to be able to start um, uh, cycling cards from their hand, and that's why I decide to get back to exile the Kavu instead of their Leyland Binding to get back my Nissa. But I definitely wanted to hold on to the fetch in my head. At any point in the game, if I find another binding, I can binding their binding, get back my Nissa, and then fetch to get Fury, Bloodbraid Elf, or whatever else from my hand, from my deck. Okay, did I accidentally pause? It seems so. Opponent played main deck Teferi, which was really unfortunate because I had Crushing Footfalls resolving next turn. So I got the Nissa back, as I said. Played Fetch, got the Fury, played the Fury. So Nissa was pretty good there, but my opponent also played Nissa, and they got their ability, so they were able to kill both of my creatures, Fury and Nissa. Still, I was in okay position because I was able to play my Shardless Agent and Scion. Put 14 power on the field last turn. Opponent played a lot of stuff too. They killed one of my Rhinos, played the Omnat, hit Nissa, put Vren on the field. So a lot of stuff going there too. Went for the Bloodbraid Elf. Bloodbraid Elf in this deck is great. It's either finding you Nissa or Shardless Agent into another set of Rhinos, which is very good. So a lot of Rhinos on the field. I had a lot of options here, but my opponent had a solution for both of my Scions. They had Boseiju for the first one, find a fetch with the second one, and find a Solitude with their fetch using the Nissa ability. So they Solitude my second Scion, so I wasn't really able to continue attacking them. Yeah, I needed any top deck. There are just a lot of top decks at this situation which were good for me, and I decided to bluff it here, go with everything, hoping for them to block Rhinos with Cavos to play my Violent Outburst, but that didn't happen, and I really didn't expect them to go full attack with 2 cards in my hand. So they had the lethal, they just had to attack, but I kind of my bluff was that they are not going to do this, and I was right. So I holded Violent Outburst in my hand. Didn't play it last turn because they didn't block with Cowls, so I went for the attack here. Now they don't have option, they have to block because they're on 7 life. And now I just cast the Violent Outburst, trade with all the Cowls, kill the Omnat, put them on 1 life. This means they can't even use the fetch with Nissa to get Solitude or whatever, so they had to concede. That was the game. Okay, so let's check out the second game. This bluff won me the game. Otherwise, I feel like it would be a pretty hard match to win against 3 territorial Cavus. I really needed that violent outburst. And they had Omnat on the field to gain life, so they were in a pretty good position. Okay, so second game, I went for the Ragrin plus Overgrown Tomb. This is a pretty good, important thing that you can go turn 2 Binding plus Suspend Rhinos. You can do this with Savai and Raugrin Triumph, but problem with Savai is Misty Rainforest don't get the Savai Triumph, and Misty Rainforest is a decent fetch that can be played in this deck. Of course, you can play the Savai and replace Misty with a different fetch, but yeah, okay. So I decided to stay back because I'm on 9 life, and but they didn't draw into anything good, and I still had 3 cards in my hand, and they decided it's time to concede. Okay, so that was the game against another 4-color Omnat pile. This one trying to utilize the new Nissa. So one against 2 Omnat piles, which is probably not that easy matchup for the regular Rhinos, but when you have Sino Draco in your hand, plus Nissa, plus your Omnat, it is much easier. Okay, so the trophy game was against Tron opponent, and this Tron opponent, you really have to see this. Like I think I never seen a Tron opponent have such a good hand. Like, okay, first they had natural Tron from hand. They played Khan on their turn 3. So obviously, a Violent Outburst is better if you play it on their end step, but I really wanted to maximize my amount of damage I make because I wanted to make Shardless Agent 3/2 to kill the card and deal 10 damage to face. This means even one of my Rhinos can, or one of my Scion can finish the game with the Fire Ice in my hand. Okay, so that was the plan, but opponent has the Oblivion Stone with another. They needed another land. They have it, of course. Okay, so they had the Oblivion Stone. I prepared on that, and I was fine. I was fine about it. No problems. I expected them to do something here. So I go for the Nissa. I still have a lot of threats. I go for Nissa, I get mana, I find another Omnat, play the Sign of Draco. So Sign of Draco is lethal next turn with the Fire Ice. But my opponent has turn 5 Ulamog to exile both of my threats. Still, I'm in a playable spot. I find a Violent Outburst here to get mana to immediately get 2 more Rhinos. So I had a pretty good hand too. But opponent finds another Oblivion Stone to again kill all my stuff and attack me for 10, put me on 7 life and 19 cards in library. But this was fine still because I still had a Violent Outburst plus a Fire Ice. So I tapped the Ulamog and again I have a lethal. But my opponent has a Traktask to gain 5 life, which is just incredible card in this situation. Okay, and they also had another land to be able to play both Gigant and Traktask this turn. So they gain 5 life, so they get out of my lethal range. In case I draw another Fire Ice plus Outburst or whatever. I go for the Omnat here, I find just more Cascade spells and I have to concede, but I think like this was pretty close to the best Tron hand I ever played against. Okay, so it was fair to lose this match. But Tron is very good matchup for this deck. So as you can see, I boarded a lot of my cards in. I have like a transformative sideboard plan. I don't need Nissas. I don't need Elves. I don't need Furies in this matchup. So all of these cards went out. Just Omnat stayed in because of like blue card count for the Force. I have both forces in, 4 force of vigors, 4 force of negations. Okay, so I had a Violent Outburst here. I had one Rhinos on the suspend. Other resolved, and there I had Sino Draco plus Fire Ice to use to tap the land on their upkeep. Always tap the Urza Tower because it makes them 3 mana. They got their Tron land, but I tap the Urza Tower. So opponent digs, try to find a solution, but they don't have a lot of them for just 6 mana. So that was the game. I had the lethal on turn 5. And that was a very quick game too. As I said, when playing first, this matchup is really favorable for the Rhinos. Okay, so but playing second can be tricky. That's why I have so many sideboard cards. Fire Ice is great against them. I use my force immediately on their expedition map. They try to silence crying, but I use my second force. And at this moment, I just hope to find Cascade Spell. Cascade Spell can really finish things quickly here. Okay, so they just go for the Might, and they find Ugin with Steerings. And so I go for the Crashing Footfalls here on turn 4, which means this is a 2-turn clock. They play they play Stone, but I have Binding in my hand, which I can play. I play it after they jump with Haywire Might. They have a second one. My draws were pretty bad at this moment. Just to draw a whole lot of bunch of Sino Jacobs in situations where I just didn't need it. And I went put them on 4 life, make them have Oblivion Stone, make them have 5th mana for Oblivion Stone. They didn't draw it. Even if they did draw it, I would still be in a game with just another land and 3 Scions in my hand, with the opponent being on 4 life. They would need like multiple solutions for to deal with 3 Scions. But yeah, it was done. Pretty quick league, I would say, for the deck that plays out pretty aggressively with the Scions, with the Furies, Nissa finding additional gas, and the Omnads and Bloodbraid Elf make the deck a bit more grindy. And I was just surprised how good the Bloodbraid Elf was. Like every time I cast it, I found a Shardless Agent plus Crashing Footfalls. Nissa was very good in games I needed it. In games I didn't need it, it was either trimmed or sideboarded, and I'm really happy with how it worked. I think the wins were pretty smooth, and most of the games I played against decks that you play all the time in leagues. They are pretty common. Even the Imperious Sour version, the Gleeful Demolition, it is pretty common to see um, various decks using the demolition after the printing of the cards. And yeah, okay, so that is it. I hope you liked the gameplay. Hope you liked the video. If you want to help the channel, click like, click subscribe, comment in the video, and that is it for today. Goodbye.